Hello everybody, while this video gets started, I wanted to tell you guys about the $500 in Battle.net credit that we're giving away to help spread the love on some new Gaming Curios channels. We're making channels for Fortnite and VR to give you guys the very best moments those games have to offer. And to enter the giveaway, all you gotta do is click that link down below and subscribe to those new channels. You could win $500 in Battle.net credit, and it's super easy and fast. Anyway, enjoy the video. Hello everybody, Disciple here with Overwatch Curios. Now, Overwatch's announcement trailer was the first the world would ever see of its universe, and as such, Blizzard chose to use some of its most iconic characters for the video to deliver the strongest first impression possible. Out of 4 heroes featured in the trailer, one in particular stood out as the iconic villain, and the animated depictions of his abilities captured the interest of viewers worldwide. In continuation of our What Could Have Been series, we're going to take a look at the history and development of Reaper, from his initial concepts in previous projects to his current form that we have in-game today, as well as all of the changes that occurred between those 2 points to give the Overwatch world its most classic evil villain that it has. The history of Reaper stretches back to Blizzard's cancelled Titan project. Much like some of Overwatch's original heroes, Reaper was initially a class that Blizzard thought could work perfectly in this new world. In Titan, the Reaper class was a character very eloquently described as a creepy killer with dark powers. Even in its earliest concept art, a lot of the visual characteristics of Reaper today can be seen taking form. He wears a dark hood and cape with heavy armor on his legs, decorated, if that's what you would call it, with skull-shaped designs. Even his bandolier of grenades can be seen wrapped around his waist. However, there's several key differences of his earliest concepts for Reaper compared to what we've got today. First of all, he's much more grotesque and ghastly than he is now. A hunched over pose is common in these early concepts, and his body shape is withered and malformed. However, this first concept shows him wielding a scythe in one hand instead of a shotgun, which adds an extra element of creepiness to him. It's a fun visual theme and something that likely had more complex interactions in a game designed originally as an MMO. For example, in an RPG environment, it's quite possible the scythe could be used to activate certain abilities that could apply things like debuffs or crowd control to the enemy's hit. However, it makes less sense in a shooter and is why it was scrapped. Generally speaking, there's little point to using a melee weapon when you're hobbling around with a shotgun, as a shotgun is going to deal its maximum damage at pretty short distances. As concepts continue to get fleshed out for the Reaper, he was eventually given a second shotgun, and in the subsequent concept art he became even more mutated. He wears less armor, his back arches more, and he appears even more malformed, and a lot of his flesh can be seen. In this, you can see how the Reaper is literally stitched together, sort of like the abominations of Warcraft. Eventually, Blizzard would do away with this hunched form and instead begin drawing Reaper upright. He'd be portrayed much more shadowy and wraith-like in contrast to his mutated appearance of old, as the team began to dial in on the exact visual tone they wanted to set for the character, and the old mutant themes seemed to have kind of gone to Roadhog. Heavy cloaks and robes would be adopted to hide virtually all of the character, which was likely not only a visual choice, it was important in the beginning for nobody to know who actually Reaper was in the game world, so drawing attention away from any human components of the character meant that they could preserve the mystery of both Reaper and what happened to Gabriel Reyes. Now, in terms of character design, Reaper went through several different weapon changes throughout his development, specifically in the Overwatch state of production after Titan was scrapped. However, at one point in time, Reaper actually used a grenade launcher instead of the dual shotguns. While Blizzard eventually decided to stray away from the concept, there are still traces of that element today. First of all, Reaper still wears a bandolier with grenades outfitted onto it around his waist. The concept was apparently entertained for quite a while as well, because even in Overwatch's announcement trailer, there are multiple scenes of Reaper using a grenade launcher during the fight with Winston and Tracer at the museum. It's kind of terrifying to think of how lethal Reaper would be if he still had access to a ranged source of damage like a grenade launcher through one of his alternate abilities, and for that reason alone it was probably pulled as a means of providing more counterplay against him in the game. But it also would be really cool if he could use a grenade launcher to launch a sort of smoke bomb, which kind of fits in the theme with Reaper and his shadows, so that he could potentially shroud an area for him to teleport into or for his team to approach from. Now, another weapon type considered for Reaper were dual-wielded submachine guns. This early idea for Reaper would have probably seen him functioning more like a flanker in the game, utilizing his shadowy abilities to sneak around undetected and attack enemies from behind, whereas traditional Reaper play today is much more focused on deathballing with your team and forming a concentric wall of murder, and he might have played out a lot more like Tracer. However, in the end, Blizzard would again return to the concept of dual-wielding shotguns, stating that they wanted Reaper's weapons to feel more powerful and threatening to the enemy to capture the essence of their vision for the character, and shotguns were the perfect fit to bring that to life. As one of the original characters for Overwatch, Reaper was around during the early development phase as Blizzard began planning out character progression systems to place into the game. In the original form of Overwatch's progression system, as you played certain heroes, you would level them up. In turn, a World of Warcraft style progression system unlocked, with players choosing different talent trees or perks to augment or enhance the way a hero is played. These trees would continue to expand based upon previous choices, unlocking further options as you continue to level up any single hero. One of these first concepts for Reaper was that when he entered Wraith form, he would heal to full health. While Wraith form is already a strong tool that offers Reaper the ability to reposition or sustain longer until support arrives, being able to heal to full health simply by using the ability was pretty grossly busted, as Jeff Kaplan points out. Not only would Wraith form give Reaper a means of quickly repositioning during a fight when he had just acquired his ultimate, but he could be sure that when he activated the ability he would be at max life when doing so. Yet another talent option for Reaper was to passively double the range of his shotguns. This was another terrifyingly powerful customization option, and Jeff goes on to say that the biggest problem with this first version of the character customization system wasn't just that some of these crazy ideas that were super powerful, but how difficult it was for players to keep track of things. It's relatively easy to keep track of a Reaper and know what to expect from him in a match today. However, when every Reaper you face could potentially have a different loadout, information can't be visually conveyed quickly enough to the player in a shooter setting. Since Overwatch is such a fast-paced game, the team decided to scrap these additional abilities and perks from the game and instead focus on delivering specific, concise information to the players. There would be a lot of cool ways to potentially balance out the talent system, such as offering trade-offs, such that maybe you could heal from your Wraith form, but it wouldn't give you full invulnerability and would function a little bit more like a Roadhog heal, so they could kill you through it. However, if you were able to come out of it, you could still be at full health, because Wraith form today, although you are invulnerable, could still leave you very, very vulnerable as soon as it's up, and having some sort of trade-off could be really nice. If you double the range on your shotguns, maybe you could take a damage decrease, or maybe inhibit another part of your kit such as your movement speed or another ability to make up for it, instead of making every single talent a straight up buff to a character. However, it would still just be a nightmare for the enemy team, since hero swapping is a thing, and even if they figured out what one Reaper could do, if the team swapped that character to someone else and another Reaper was on the battlefield, you'd have to relearn exactly how that talent was set up. Now that could be really cool in professional matches where you have dedicated characters and you're going to know who's going to be on what talent build, but in typical casual play, that's just impossible. Now we've made a video talking about the talent build system in the past, and if you guys want to check it out, you can go ahead, but it's something that's really interesting to think about, and that I would still love to see some sort of progress system implemented in the game in the future. Obviously not with talents, but maybe with some other sort of unlock. Now the team has said they don't want to promote anyone one-tricking or maining one character, but if they could give some sort of benefit for playing it, I think that would be pretty cool. Now Reaper would also see changes to his voiceovers in-game during development. When originally showed at BlizzCon of 2014, his catchphrase was "Time to Reap." Despite being such an edgy character, the team found the voice line to be a little too cheesy, and would instead land upon the phrase "Death walks among you" to really drive home the theme of badassery and mayhem. Now in the end, Reaper saw a wealth of adjustments and changes in the time between conception and completion. With ideas ranging from crossbows to claws, Blizzard spent a ton of time dialing in on one of its most iconic villains in the Overwatch world. During the early days of development, they had a lot of time to explore different options and themes, which we've only just scratched the surface on. However, from the ghoulish mutation to a ghastly apparition, the core concept of Reaper's development was always to deliver this shadowy assassin capable of maneuvering around the map quickly and living to tell the tale. Now, if you happen to be new to our channel here, why not hit that subscribe button if you like the video so you can catch all of our latest content as it comes out. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope that you guys have a great 2018. Until next time, peace.